Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this week for my Flash bonus video, I wanted to talk all about time travel in the DC universe and how the TV show is going to deal with it. We're still a little ways away, but we're going to see that play out in the next couple of episodes, like the way they're going to visualize time travel on the Flash. In the context of the comics, the Flash uses the Speed Force to time travel. So I'm going to start with a history of time travel in the comics relative to the Flash, and then I'll talk about how I think the TV show is going to deal with it. So right off the bat, there are a couple really important ideas. There's time travel specifically. Obviously, you've seen a lot of time travel movies, a lot of stories that have dealt with it. There's the Speed Force, and then there's the DC multiverse. In the older comics, like Golden Age, Silver Age, time travel was used to allow characters to cross over. So you get Justice League interacting with characters from different titles, and they would use time travel as a way to accomplish that, or to send characters on wacky adventures. As DC grew, they started to talk more and more about the idea of a multiverse. So you could explain why there were different versions of different characters. This worked for a while, but eventually continuity became a big issue. DC decided to simplify everything, so they had Crisis on Infinite Earths and they collapsed everything to a single continuity. If you ever read Flashpoint Paradox, this is the exact same thing. Like they took the Wildstorm, Vertigo, and main DC universes and just combined them all into one shared continuity. Obviously, Convergence right now, that's like the current DC comic book event this summer. That's undoing all that, so we're going back to multiverse. But you get the idea. Time travel, multiverse, all used to deal with IP. The one character that kind of fit naturally into this idea of jumping between worlds, jumping around in time, was the Flash, because of the Speed Force. The origins of the Speed Force are still a little vague. It's this extra-dimensional energy source that supposedly grew out of Jack Kirby's idea of the quote-unquote source. That's an idea that was born in his Fourth World comic books, also known as the New Gods. That's also kind of the way DC has explained its metahumans, in that the energy that gives them their metahuman abilities originates from the source, the quote-unquote source. The TV show has simplified that. They're just going with the idea of dark matter. So for all intents and purposes, when the Flash is accessing the Speed Force on the TV show, he's accessing that extra-dimensional dark matter. That's where things get a little timey-wimey because, the types of powers the Flash can have just depend on what the writers want him to do. So obviously the TV show just going to simplify these things. Don't worry about it too much for now, but essentially think of the Speed Force as allowing the Flash to time travel via wormhole theory. It's like the Speed Force is this space-time train depot that allows you to go to any point in time you want to, but in order to get into the train depot, you have to achieve a certain velocity that only the Flash family is capable of. And that includes all the Reverse Flashes too. There have been a lot of different Reverse Flashes in the comics, but all of them time travel using the Speed Force. It's just the way they access the Speed Force is a little bit different. Like there's the Cosmic Treadmill, they're just flat out running super fast. It's all based on the Speed Force. On the TV show, Harrison Wells sacrificed his tachyon device. That was supposed to give him the ability to time travel, so they might turn Cisco's souped-up treadmill into the Cosmic Treadmill from the comics and use it that way. That would be really awesome, but I'm not expecting it. There have been a couple descriptions online about the Flash and the Reverse Flash achieving, super velocity and time traveling. I don't know if those are true or not, so I'm just going to wait and see what the TV show does. At their core, all Flash stories are time travel stories. You can think of time as a circle, but the interesting thing is where did the circle start? If the Flash and the Reverse Flash had been battling across space and time, when did the fight start? And on the TV show, if we're going through time loops, which loop is this? Like, is this Barry Prime? Is this the first Barry? Or has the Reverse Flash gone back in time several times to change the past? It can be a really confusing causality loop, but for all intents and purposes, I think the TV show is just doing the simplest version, and we're seeing Barry Prime, even though the Reverse Flash is the one that started this war. It's a very chicken or the egg argument. Did Barry Allen come first, become the Flash, inspire the Reverse Flash to become the Reverse Flash, or did it happen in a different order? So let's look at the comics, just going back to Professor Zoom's origin story. So I'm going to go with the Geoff Johns origin story for Eobard Thawne. It's pretty faithful to the first origin story from the Silver Age comics, just because Professor Zoom is from the Silver Age. He just added a lot more logic to it, so it makes more sense on paper. In order to make Eobard Thawne a little more sympathetic, Geoff Johns tells him as being born in the 25th century, which is basically like the Ned Flanders version of the future. Imagine the most boring, vanilla, planned out thing ever. There's no such thing as accidents or unpredictability. Even time itself is governed. So like everything you do, every moment of your day, pre-planned, set out ahead of time. I know it sounds really dystopian, which is why Eobard Thawne rebels. He says, this is all bullcrap. As he starts to grow up, he learns about the Flashes and their ability to bend space-time. But In the future, in the 25th century, there aren't any speedsters. There's no one left alive that can access the Speed Force. So slowly over time, he learns how to access the Speed Force and recreate the accident that created the Barry Allen Flash. But it gets a little timey-wimey, because as he grows up, periodically, like when big events in his life happen, things that change the course of his life, this shadowy figure that looks like the Reverse Flash appears and changes things. Eventually, he grows to adulthood and finds a time capsule, like one just appears in front of him, with Barry Allen's Flash suit. Because the suit came into direct contact with the Speed Force, Eobard Thawne is able to recreate that accident that created the Barry Allen Flash, and he gains his Speed Force powers. He reverse engineers the Flash, thus he becomes the Reverse Flash. Based on the way Geoff Johns lays it out, it seems like at some point in his future, Eobard Thawne gets the Reverse Flash powers and then loops back on his own timeline to help himself gain those powers faster. It's kind of like watching a bowling ball roll down towards the pins. Eobard Thawne wants a strike, but he throws it in the wrong direction. So he just jumps in at different points in time to correct the course of the ball so that it hits the strike. Eventually, he becomes a criminal, the Flash stops him, but the Reverse Flash needs Barry Allen to become the Flash so that he can become the Reverse Flash in the future, so they're stuck in this loop. As time goes by, the Reverse Flash's plans get grander and grander until he concocts Flashpoint, an alternate timeline where Barry Allen never became the Flash, and the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, is the sole possessor of the Speed Force. It gets way more complicated than that, but just, in the simplest of terms, the Reverse Flash goes back in time, changes something, the Flash fixes it, then the Reverse Flash goes back again and again and again and again, and you get the idea. Eventually, they tease out the idea of the butterfly effect. Barry learns that even changing small things in the past will have universe-shattering consequences in the future. Remember when Joe said, "Learn to accept the things that I can't change." So no matter how fast Barry can run, there are some things that he won't be able to change. So like I said, there are a bunch of different versions of the Reverse Flash, but they all use the Speed Force to time travel. We haven't got to the point on the show where Barry can access the Speed Force itself, where he can physically travel into the Speed Force. If you remember, Martin Stein described it as the highway. The Speed Force is the highway. Barry just can't get on it yet, so he can't time travel till he can take the on-ramp. That just means running faster and faster. One of the really fun things that the producers have said, though, is that when they do start to do time travel stuff, they will pay homage to a lot of the classic time travel stories, like Back to the Future, Terminator, like they already joked about on the show, Doctor Who, Groundhog's Day, really funny, sad, horrifying stories all at the same time. My favorite time travel stories are Doctor Who, of course, as you can guess by all the Doctor Who videos on my channel, Groundhog's Day, Back to the Future, Terminator, like Cisco jokes. And then there's more hardcore stuff like Time Crimes and Primer. Those are awesome movies. If you want a really scientific, in-depth look that goes into the logic of time travel, Primer is your best bet. But it's also the hardest to follow. It's excruciating in its detail and its analysis of time travel. Here's my big question for you guys. When the show does get into time travel, do you want to see them do a Flashpoint Paradox type storyline? I think it's a really interesting idea. But in order to accomplish it, I think that they would have to keep it relatively self-contained. I don't think that they're going to do any storyline that's going to make the Arrow writers or the writers of this spin-off show have to incorporate Flash stuff into it. So if something happens to change the universe inside the Flash, like in the finale or something like that, or even in season 2, I think that they'll have to fix it within that same episode. Otherwise, they'd have to do a whole bunch of explainers on Arrow in this new spin-off show. Just in the name of sanity, I think the show will try to keep its time travel stories relatively self-contained to the Flash so that, Arrow doesn't have to deal with it. Just to get you guys a little more pumped, Rick Cosnett posted this picture from behind the scenes of him hanging out with the Reverse Flash. Theorycraft all you want. I think I'm going to save that for next week's Flash video. They're just starting to film the last couple of episodes. To that end, we have to remember that Iris West is going to be investigating Star Labs, which means that eventually Eddie Thawne is going to cross paths with Harrison Wells more. If you guys have read any Flash comics, you kind of see where I'm going with this. I think they're going to share a relationship that's going to look something like Eobard Thawne and Hunter Zolomon. Just in general, when you're theory crafting, remember that the TV show is blending the Wally West stories with the Barry Allen stories. I think for next week's bonus Flash video, I'll probably do a villain character video, just because it's been a while since I talked about big Flash villains. They've already picked it up for season 2, for those that don't know. The Flash has been picked up for season 2. So there's going to be a whole bunch of new villains that they can bring in. While you guys wait for that next video, you can click here to learn all about Batman, A Death in the Family in the comics. I just do an explainer for the comic book storyline. And you can click here to catch up with all my Age of Ultron videos. Thanks so much for watching. Now let's all do the thing.